So it's just welcome to everyone that's joined this evening, and thank you very much for joining. I'm very grateful for Joe Aungiers of Enniskillen Royal Boat Club, Eleanor Casey from Skibbereen, and Colm Dowling from Commercial for joining tonight. And just going to have a really informal chat. For those that have attended, just please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I imagine that we'll be hopping between topics, and because we've got three very different clubs with different priorities. So feel free to ask questions, and yeah, we'll kick off with I'm going to ask each of the panelists or the club members to tell us a bit about their role in the club. Maybe even Joe, to start with you, how you came to Enniskillen and then what your current role is within Enniskillen.
Right, well, hello everybody. I came to coaching at Enniskillen 7 years ago when my son started rowing there. My background is actually more in coaching horse sport than in rowing, but I was a university rower, so it was kind of like a natural progression to get back into it and coach there. We have a team of about 16 coaches from all sorts of different backgrounds there at the moment.
And is your current role in the club, it's within the coaching team?
That's right, yes. I'm one of the part-time coaches there. So we have a head of rowing, an assistant head coach, and two part-timers, and then a big team of volunteers on top of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think there are a few clubs that get that mix of having the paid coach and the volunteer coach. And it's a nice resource to have, but I'm sure it brings other challenges as well of how you get that all to work seamlessly. But I'll ask Eleanor, so a stalwart of Skibbereen Rowing Club. So how did you get involved, and what's your current role, or how that your role has even evolved maybe through the last years?
Thanks for hosting this, Claire. My role, I suppose, is like a part-time coach with the beginners, transitioning kind of up to junior 14, and it's time, I suppose, is my issue. Like, I don't have a lot of spare time, but at the same time, you know, I'm happy to help out whenever I'm needed, and I just love to see the beginners come and to just get stuck in and to, I suppose, train like with everybody kind of trains together at the moment anyway, and like COVID as to how the training will keep going like through the winter, but yeah, that's my role at the moment anyway.
Very good. Did you have a formal role on the committee at times?
Yeah, sure. I suppose I'm involved in the club for a long time. I suppose going back, nearly over 30 years. Like, so, you know, I'd have been involved, and then like having kids, and then being in the background, I suppose, really. But happy to help out, and it's lovely to see the kids. You know, they're like sponges starting off, and being able to help them, you know, to get established, and you know, to encourage them to keep going. And I suppose that's the nice thing about rowing, that everybody gets the same opportunity, because everybody gets a chance to row. Whereas, you know, in other sports, you know, you might get to play, you might be left on the bench. So with rowing, that's the really positive aspects of the sport. And I suppose that's why we're still in it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And Colm, a familiar face in commercial from junior to captain to even your current role. So tell us a bit about how long you've been involved in commercial, or how your role has evolved.
Yeah, so long-time member of commercial, rower, captain, kind of help out in the committee, etc. Can I say some of my early members of commercial when I was about 15, 16, probably about 16, I'd say, in Blessington Lake racing Claire when she was 14, and losing to her in the school. So yeah, but been around a long time. Little bit of coaching, little bit of captain work, help out regatta.
At what time in your years in commercial did you get involved in the I suppose the organisation of the club, or more the committee side?
Actually, with the committee, probably very early, pretty much from after junior going into college, I would have thought, oh, something cool to do, join the committee and kind of learn how it all works and volunteer bits and bobs. So I probably did a couple of years when I was 18, 19, a couple of years in the committee, left the club for a while, or moved, relocated, and then back onto the committee when I was a bit older then.
Yeah, and you took the captaincy role while you were an athlete. Kind of, how did you find that? And because that's probably quite a difficult one and unusual, maybe, because captains generally could either be a coach or involved in the club in a different way. Maybe what was your motivation for doing that, or how did you find that balance?
Actually, can't remember what my motivation was at the time, but definitely it was a tough job to do as an athlete, and particularly the big thing was to not be seen as too biased in your own kind of crew's direction. So yeah, definitely a tough move.
Yeah, but it was a successful couple of years for commercials, so
yes.
Yeah, it went well. So Joe, I'm just going to ask you a bit about, can you describe a bit, well, you already probably have the setup within the club, but how your coaching structure works. I know you have really good diversity of like experience and age group within the coaching team. So maybe how do you recruit, or how does the club manage to retain coaches for so long?
Yeah, we are very, very lucky with the diversity of coaching that we have. I mean, we have 2 former Olympic rowers. We have a number of former junior international rowers, masters champions, a few parents, some of them a bit like myself, who've coached in other sports and have transitioned over to coaching rowing. At the moment, the team, age-wise, we range from 19 to 70, and everything in between, really. Most of the coaches have been coaching with the club for a number of years. And then we do have a couple of new people who've come in the last year or two, one new person this year as well. We do seem to just gather coaches. I mean, it doesn't seem to be too difficult to get them. The issue lately has been that our numbers of rowers has increased so much. So you obviously, especially when you're using volunteer coaches, you need to have enough of a body of coaches that you're not expecting too much from any one person, and that we can sort of spread the workload a bit. But having said that, most people are very, very generous with their time. So they do come very regularly. And we do have a lot of training sessions just in order to cope with the number of rowers that we've got.
Do you do anything at the start of the year to, let's say, recruit those new coaches, or bring in parents or maybe people from a different background or a different sport? Do you do anything actively, or does it kind of organically happen?
Well, I think maybe this year was the first year that we have actually asked if anybody wanted to coach. Normally it is it just sort of seems to happen fairly naturally that people do offer their services, and we do tend to get returning rowers, so people who've been away maybe at university for 3 or 4 years come back to Fermanagh to work, and then they come back and coach as well, which is a lovely thing to see, that they actually do want to put something back in and help the club out and help the new rowers coming along. But as I say, I mean, some of our coaches have been coaching forever. Ian Kennedy, Jerry Murphy, the sort of the stalwarts of the club.
Absolutely, and I know it like broke their heart while the club was closed down with Ian Kennedy. I know he posted on Facebook once a week, I think, an ode almost to the athletes, and it was really, really cool. But you can see how painful it was for him to not be down on the banks coaching. And do you do anything for, let's say, a coach coming in that hasn't got experience of rowing? Do you do anything to bring them up to kind of improve their coaching?
Yeah, we do sort of operate a sort of mentoring sort of scheme. So any new coach coming along would go out with all of the other coaches at some point, so that they're getting a good flavour of the different coaching styles, the different squads that we're working with. And there is a certain amount of learning on the job, obviously. And then people are encouraged to go on and take their coaching qualifications on from that.
Yeah. No. Okay, cool. That's really cool. Eleanor, I think this is like a question definitely to put to Skibbereen, being like as successful as you are. Do you think the club has a really obvious ethos that they try and stick to, or what would you think the ethos of Skibbereen Rowing Club is?
Well, I'm sure it's probably not any different to any other club, Claire, to be honest, but everybody gets the same opportunity, so everybody is encouraged to be the best they can, to take responsibility for their own training. And I suppose we keep things simple, you know, as in like this training program, you follow it. It's a commitment, and I suppose it becomes like a lifestyle choice for the athletes now. It's mostly juniors that very committed and like train consistently. So like they're all little things, but simple things. Like there's no secret to it, but I suppose it becomes like part of like the positive mind frame or the mindset that kind of is embedded from a young age there. So whether that makes a difference, I think it helps. You know, it helps to, you know, success breeds success. That helps the club, and obviously, you know, if you see somebody train hard, then you want to train hard.
Yeah, but you kind of focus. It sounds a little bit like the focus of the ethos is on the individual. Like you give them the tools to kind of be the best they can.
Absolutely. Well, like it's a level playing pitch, so like everybody has the same equipment available to them. The rowing machines, the PT, like, you know, obviously for the juniors, the very young, it's just PT and circuits and that. But like it's just simple philosophy, I suppose. Really go out there, work hard, and finish every session. So like you can't do any more than that.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I suppose they want to do it, and I suppose that's the thing, they're not being forced, and they're encouraged to be them. And carries them through, I think, right, you know, from junior to senior. And, you know, I think it kind of sets probably for a good lifestyle as well there, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you, I'm probably going to ask the same question to Colm and Joe. Like, Colm, do you think commercial has an ethos that every coach and every committee member, every club member knows what that is, or what commercial's goal is?
I think it's something we've been working on kind of through a Rowing Ireland partnership lately, but probably like just naturally, I'd say, much like Eleanor mentioned, hard work, commitment, respect, kind of welcoming. There's definitely, much like any club, you're part of a family. Yeah.
And do you think, though, like it's that a club needs to set that as a specific, like set a specific goal? Like you mentioned the collaboration with or the partnership with Rowing Ireland, that's the Sustainable Club Initiative. And was there anything in that focused on setting that goal for the club?
Yeah, and that's I suppose, to start off, it was to list what are our values, what's our mission plan for the next couple of years, and say, okay, welcoming, respect, as I said, all those kind of, you know, the words, and it's then values, potentially then to actually put posters around the club so people know, people then kind of have at the back of their mind. So it's kind of large posters, big words, and then it comes kind of smaller posters. Actually, what does this mean? How does this day to day?
Yeah, so you're really developing like a strategy kind of for the club, I suppose, first with the values and then the goals. Yeah, cool. I think that's probably extremely difficult for clubs to do when they're trying to operate on the day to day, to have the like big vision and to get to sit back and think, well, what's the long term goal?
Yeah, I think that's why from Rowing Ireland it was a side committee, so it wasn't just the same committee who have all the burden of bills and logistics. It was actually a separate group of people who can have a brainstorm every now and then, kind of every 2 months meet up to kind of talk through and go through the plan.
Who is it that you're working with that led that?
So it was through Rowing Ireland, and I believe the contact was Simon Dickey. He's ex Enniskillen. He was working with GB Rowing for, I think he said, 20 plus years as club development over there, and he had a similar kind of strategy he picked, or we volunteered, commercial volunteered, and I think St. Michael's as well in Limerick volunteered to kind of get a couple of lessons from him and talks from him.
And where are you on that process? Are you like?
Yeah, so we actually delivered it last night at the AGM,
Okay.
pretty much. So I think it was a bit delayed with COVID, so I think it was about 18 months of kind of on-off meetings and kind of agreements, but it's all delivered at the AGM. So I'd say we'll probably have posters up by Christmas and kind of plans from there. So yeah.
Cool. And Joe, do you think you could sum up the ethos or the goals of Enniskillen Royal?
I think a lot of our ethos comes from the history of the club. Obviously, originally it was a school club, Pretoria Royal Grammar School. But after the Enniskillen bombing in '87, the club was opened up to the boys from St. Michael's School as well, which started the cross-community aspect of the club, which has been built on ever since. So girls were included in 2005 and welcomed into the club. And now we accept children from any school in Enniskillen. So we are known for this cross-community mission that we have. We do talk often about our rowing family in Enniskillen, because we really do have this lovely, warm family feel to the club. And as I say, our membership is huge now, and yet we still have that. So we are competitive, but we also embrace community. And that's why we get so much support, I think, from the community as well.
That's lovely. Yeah, it's a really nice kind of thing to be part of, I imagine, in Enniskillen, considering the history. And probably off the back of that, I'd like to ask you, one of the things we talked about previously was something that you think Enniskillen does well, and it probably feeds from that kind of how it's valued or how it's seen in the community, but that your fundraising, you think the fundraising is done particularly well in Enniskillen. Is there anything that you could share that you think other clubs could learn from around maybe projects or fundraising that you've done before, or how you go about fundraising?
Well, the fundraising is essential for us, because even though we have our facilities which are based at the school, and we get a certain amount of financial support from the school, most of our other things that we have to spend money on comes purely from fundraising or from grant money and donations. In 2013, we had the extension to our boathouse and the new clubhouse facilities built, which again, largely done through fundraising. Since the amalgamation of Pretoria and collegiate grammar schools in Enniskillen, which made us Enniskillen Royal Grammar, hence we are now Enniskillen Royal Boat Club, just to confuse everybody, which only happened 4 years ago. Our fundraising efforts have raised £117,000 just in 4 years, and another £18,500 in grant aid and donations. She'll hate me for saying this, but this is largely down to Gay Conway, who heads up our parent support group, and Claire Wilson, who chases grants all around the place, but also to the amazing amount of support we get from parents. No amount of fundraising is too little. So Gay has organised all sorts of things, but she would say, every pound counts. So every pound that comes in is spent on equipment to help our kids go out there and be competitive. We've done things from the Not So Strictly Come Dancing thing, which is the biggest fundraiser of the lot, and a lot of work goes into it, an awful lot of stress, but it the pounds, to small things like today there was a cash for clothes collection. So anybody who wants to clear out their wardrobes brings their clothes in, and a few pounds is raised through selling old clothes. So there are all sorts of things in between that. But again, a lot of the fundraising brings the community together. So for the Strictly, we had support from all sorts of people. An awful lot of NHS workers actually decided to help and join in with that. So the community is on board with what we're doing as well.
And do you think it's really important that that fundraising committee, you mentioned the parents, but that it's separate to maybe any of the other kind of elements of the club or committees to the club, in that it obviously is an awful lot of work?
It is actually all part of the same thing, because obviously we are a school club, so we don't have the same sort of committee structure as other clubs might have. So the parent support group is largely there to support the work of the coaches and to support the children in their sport. So we want the children to get the best equipment they possibly can, and because of that, we encourage the parents to get actively involved in the fundraising. The membership costs are kept quite low so that we're not preventing anybody from joining the club, but then it means that parents can join in and help us to raise money for the children. And again, we get support from local business. Gay Conway is very active on social media, so people are seeing what the club does, and I think that is very important as well. It heightens awareness, and it just makes it more interesting for the community if they see what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think for parents that, like, I would even talk about my own parents, like, they knew nothing about rowing, and a lot of the time I didn't, like, when I was a teenager, I was like, go away from the club, like, you're not helping me rig up my boat, I know how to do it myself. But they got massively involved with the fundraising element, because it was stuff they did know and what they could do, so like around the bag packing, and so it's probably a really effective way of bringing in parents that can't basically pitch in the club to contribute in a different way. I don't know if Colm or Eleanor have anything to add. I know, actually, Eleanor, you've a big, I don't know, is it as much of a fundraiser as an event coming up, part of your 50th? Is it, or what is it, the 30th year anniversary of Skibbereen?
I'm not actually involved in organising it now, so I don't actually have the full details. But it's for anybody in any country that can take part in a virtual regatta. Different distances. I've seen it on social media. I've obviously heard about it, talked about in posts. But it's something new. It's just something different. I think that hopefully the clubs will get on board, both in Ireland and other countries, and it should be fun. You can obviously be in a single, but it's all like on the Row Perfect. But you can be in a bigger boat and have a crew. But yeah, it sounds like good fun, and it's the virtual, what it's all about. Like the mums in the club have just completed Camino, a virtual Camino, which it was just something different, and it's been great because we've all logged our mileage, either walking or running, and like we reached our destination, and then we decided, oh look, we'll do another couple of 100 kilometers. So it does trying to come up with different things just to bring fun in without going to see people all the time.
Yeah, do you actively try and create initiatives for parents as well as juniors? Because I know Skibbereen is primarily junior club.
Yeah, well, there are masters in the club, which is lovely, and it's great to see like all ages being, accommodated and facilitated. And the parents are obviously totally committed to helping like the club, because I suppose like funds for every club wouldn't be great at the moment because of the lack of opportunities. But people are coming up with fantastic ideas, and like that's the nice thing. Whether it was the Carlow triathlon, the bank holiday weekend, we were all able to take part in it, and so our times and that. So that's kind of what it is really. Just coming up with new ideas and challenges, and getting parents, grandparents, friends involved. And if there's money raised, like that's a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. Colm, do you think commercial have done anything in particular around fundraising that stands out?
Probably not in fundraising. I think actually what Joe said there, I was kind of taking notes. The parent support group sounds certainly good. That it's another kind of side group that could brainstorm and work away. But no, I think over the years, a little bit of backpacking here and there, but it's probably something we've lacked on, given that we have a good membership and we have a bar, so there is a bit of money coming in there. I think maybe we're a little bit complacent on the fundraising, but there would be small bits here and there, but not enough. I think definitely not enough.
Yeah. Another thing you did do, Colm, in commercial recently is the Return to Rowing initiative, and now that's kind of changed some structures in your own club. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah. So I think again, I think another probably came from Rowing Ireland potentially. Claire, you were involved, but basically it was an open call to anyone who rowed in the past 10, 15, 20, 30 years who wanted to get back involved, and huge uplift. Just coming down twice a week, 8 were organised, boats are rigged, come on down for an hour. I believe the membership was quite reduced, and I think at one point we had 3 women's 8s and 2 men's 8s. Now it's 2 and 1, and they all want to keep going. Originally it was for kind of 18 weeks. They're now looking to keep going. And because of that, now the club is now introducing a social membership, kind of a half-price membership, off peak hours. So that's actually hopefully act as a bit of fundraising too. But yeah, really, really good to see.
Yeah. And how's that going to work? Because I'd say like some of the reluctance around having like recreational members is that sharing of equipment. You're already up to your gills with juniors. Also now you've got the added issue of bringing members in when there's pods and restrictions on numbers. So how are you addressing that with the social membership?
So it'll be off peak. I don't know the exact hours now, but I think it'll be off peak, away from the core kind of 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. kind of slots. It'll be off peak.
No, it is something that I was involved in, and I'm in an 8 in Rowing out of Neptune at the moment, and we got two 8s together there, and UCD have one, Cork have done it as well, and it was originally to train for the New Ross Challenge, but unfortunately that was cancelled, so we're kind of coming up with some alternatives. But what I found was each week I was getting more messages from people asking could they come along, because it was just once a week for a couple of hours, and we all see rowing as this thing that takes up your entire life, and that you can't do it unless you're willing to give it. So I think there is great interest, and I think it could be something that clubs capitalize on, because I guess those more senior members or older members that are employed can pay a little bit more than what maybe you might ask of a junior. So I think that's one that definitely would be great to see rolled out maybe in other clubs as well. What was I actually, I was going to come on from that to say, so about that commitment in terms of how much it takes. So Colm, you were involved in getting a lot of previous members back in the club, and then you went on and won the senior men's 8 for 3 years in a row. As a non-university club, I think that's a real challenge to bring people back when they're now employment and everything else. Can you describe a bit about how you managed to bring people back and keep them for those years? Because I think the drop off of senior members is a real issue.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was luck, but we kind of created an environment. So I think it was maybe one year there was a small handful of us who were always doing a bit of rowing, okay technique, semi-fit, had a reasonable year rowing, and then following year we said, look, let's make this bigger. We arranged a proper coach through Jerry Canton to really kind of take us on, and then we started to call people. We called a few people who are in Dublin, like people from Carlow, Belfast, Galway, Cork. There was suddenly a lot of people who were working ex-college, ex-whatever, and a lot of Trinity and UCD graduates would then come too. And I think it was just, once you say we're doing this, people will come. And that's actually something that Simon Dickey on the Rowing Ireland strategy was saying, that people think there's no volunteers, but actually when you ask for volunteers, people put their hands up. They're just not really being asked. And it was quite similar to the rowing, that, once we said, let's do this, it was just, and I think what worked as well is that we were a load of guys who were maybe, or people in our kind of late 20s, we had settled into work. We were kind of past our first couple of years in kind of work environment, but most people hadn't got to the stage of kind of settling down too much. So it was kind of this lovely little period where it just worked to train and commit for a couple of years. Yeah.
And do you think like there was anything different to your rowing when you were a junior, and it's like every weekend, and after, like, was there a bit more flexibility involved?
Yeah, and that's actually something we try and tell kind of college graduates when they come along now. It's much more about you, what you want to do. And there's a lot more, like if you're not around a Saturday, it's fine. Like, especially given the age, people have weddings and baby showers and stag parties and everything. So it's kind of, people have lives. And the idea is, look, with a row, you have a certain target to meet kind of physically. If you're there, it's okay. We will take it, a lot more serious come kind of February, March. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's cool. And like it was amazing even for me to see all those guys back rowing, and it'd be great to see probably more clubs doing that, and it fitting in with that schedule around work, and that you can feel like you can do both. Eleanor, I was going to ask you about Skibbereen, and kind of a bit more of a general question, but anything about the biggest challenge that the club might have faced, and how they might have overcome it, that you think it would be of value to other clubs to learn from?
I suppose there's a few in the past. I suppose, Claire, it was where there was like a shortage of athletes, where we needed new blood coming into the club. So the club looked at organising a schools rowing programme, and this wouldn't have been like running before this. So it was like a complete package that was offered to a few schools, like where a bus would be organised by the rowing club to collect the probably 6th class students in the country. It could be 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, depending on the size of the school. And then they'd be brought to the club, and they'd have an hour of activity, a healthy start. And then the bus would have gone to the next school and brought them back, and then taken away the first school. So it was kind of a trial, but it worked out to be very successful. Like lots of new junior members came, and it's running for years now. And like we take everybody, the whole class comes, or the whole room comes, and they're all busy for the hour. They love just being part of it. The teacher can sit and have the cup of coffee, read the paper, and then hop on the bus and take them back to school again. So it has made a huge difference to the numbers that we've got, and as well as that, it's been a great service like to the schools, because it brings variety like to their PE program as well. That would be one, I suppose, that's nice to share with other clubs if they wanted to take that on board, and if they wanted to make contact just to discuss it further, that's no problem. Finance, I suppose, is one of the things that each club, and particularly Skibbereen, I suppose, it's a small rural town, just to kind of come up with new fundraising ideas. And we've touched on it, like where you're trying to come up with different ideas to other, sports clubs with lotto and different bingo. They have, every club kind of comes up with different things, but we're constantly trying to reinvent ourselves with new ideas. I suppose because like we don't have any like 3rd level colleges anywhere near, it means that like it's juniors, and then once they move on to seniors, they're gone, like they're gone to college, rowing for colleges, or gone abroad or whatever. But in fairness, a lot of them do come back and row for us when they can, or help out, which is another positive in the club.
Back to just to ask you about the school bus. So that's like for primary school level, is it?
It is. It's for primary school. So in the town itself, it would be 6th class in, like there's 3 national schools. So they would all be given an opportunity to come. And then we've extended it to country schools, like rural schools, that we organise a bus to collect the senior room. So that could be 4th, 5th, 6th, or from 3rd up, depending on if it's a 2-teacher school or 3. And then it's mixed, like you'll have boys and girls coming, and it's fabulous. Like it's just, they're like that now. They just hop in. It's a knocked, that they get into, they just have an hour of busyness, like just being active, and teachers love it, kids love it. And then they come back, then, if they're interested, they can come back and start, on a Sunday morning, and just, have a trial. And if they're interested, then just keep coming.
Yeah. For the junior levels then, let's say with secondary school, do you also have a partnership or an agreement with the school to kind of organise transport between?
Our arrangement there is kind of where we have a private bus collect the athletes from the school, probably 4 days a week. So 4 evenings they come by bus from the school, because it's a community school now, and they come to the club. So they just pay €2 each to use the bus, and it's a great service again, like, because it just keeps things like straightforward for the students. They come with their gear bags to school, hop on the bus, and then they're collected when the session is finished.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like, even probably even for the coaches, it's a little bit more structured in that it's every time, and you don't have the late straggler that got held up after school, or
Even for parents, well, they appreciate the fact that it's the club organises it. There isn't anything during school hours at the moment. The Get Going, Get Rowing did operate over the years, like during school hours, but again, this is kind of where we as a club decided, look, we needed to provide a bus, and our local bus company, Danian Long, like, who has been super and really committed to the service, has provided us each time for us, each term. So that makes a big difference to training consistently.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. I'll just say to anyone attending, if you could type any questions into the chat, rather than, I know someone has a hand raised, but it would be probably easier if any questions are coming in, just put them in the chat. Thanks. So I don't know, Colm, would you be able to answer that question as well, of like any of the bigger challenges that commercial have faced that they've kind of overcome particularly well?
Overcome is I don't know. Definitely, I think coaching is a big challenge for us, and not overburdening a few. I think it's the same everywhere, but I'd say we're still, I think it's still the bottleneck is there. We're quite good for equipment and money. I think we're actually probably better off, and I don't know if it's our membership is probably quite high. I know we got very lucky with a grant 2 years ago, but yeah, I think definitely the coaching bottleneck, and it's something we're always kind of working on. There always is probably not as good as what Joe said about someone going into a launch with someone and kind of that mentorship program. So it's definitely something to look at, but no, I think overcoming, no, not yet.
Did you come up with any solutions to that in the sustainable clubs around how to recruit or bring in new coaches?
Yeah, so I think the big thing was to not overburden people, and that was the big structure there was, look, get them in for 1-2 sessions a week so they know and really mean it. So actually have it when they do come in. It's not just, we'll say this on paper, oh, once you're here, it's done. So I think the plan is to hopefully, get it so they have it so there's actually no volunteers. It's not going to be crazy, and the equipment's in good condition. Everything is kind of set up ready to go, so they're not coming down and having to do 5 hours of work for an hour of coaching.
Yeah, fair. It was something you said to me previously, was that like you personally could have an opportunity to go coaching, but you actually feel like you're better placed to try and bring in new coaches, or do like get more coaches in rather than you just focusing on coaching one crew. Like,
I think more helping out with the helping out with the actual organization and logistics of it, rather than kind of getting stuck in myself. I could probably do an okay job, but more helping out with the logistics, helping out with the volunteers.
So kind of recognizing strengths of like the committee members and sticking to them, instead of getting you to coach as well as what you're doing, and then 3 or 4 years down the line you're gone. Similarly, Joe, any big challenges maybe in the more recent years that you've managed to overcome?
I think probably our biggest challenge has been this year, with the huge numbers that we have coming through, an enormous number of new recruits this year. Slightly different way of managing it because of COVID. Normally, we would take a break after champs and take 6 weeks off before school starts, and then the beginners would come in September, and we would be trying to get them rowing before Halloween, really, before the dark nights and the weather gets too much. But because we only went back onto the water at the beginning of July, we then ran 3 weeks of learn to row courses for the new ones coming in, and it actually worked really well. Not just that we had nice weather and that we could give them lots of time, but so many of our rowers came back to help. So instead of taking boats full of complete beginners out, we had experienced rowers sitting in with them, and experienced people coxing them, and it worked so well to get them going, and they're absolutely flying now. So whereas we were quite worried about this large intake, they've actually sort of merged well with the rest of the club. And we were a bit concerned. It was a bit of a logistical nightmare to sort out training sessions, sort out the coaches, make sure that we could actually manage them. But touching wood, we seem to be getting there. So I'm not saying there won't be a few extra tweaks along the way, but at the moment everybody's getting out, everybody's getting coaching, and it's working really quite well. So
we did have one question come in there, and it's so how do you keep girls involved after junior 16? We have 46 junior members and only 1 junior 18 female. So I guess probably even like as a first question is like, have you seen similar things in your own club that drop off after junior 16?
For me,
are
you still talking to
me?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously we're a junior club, and we tend to actually retain more girls than boys, probably at J18 level. But yes, we find that the athletes tend to be able to manage their time very well. So rowing doesn't seem to affect academic performance, but we are quite focused on making sure that it doesn't affect their schoolwork, and that they do still enjoy it, but that at that age they still have a focus. So we are competitive, and they do have competitive goals, and that seems to keep the interest there as well. So yeah, we don't have a problem keeping them going, and in fact a lot of our J18s would be facing competition from some of the J16 girls who are looking for places in those crews, and it sort of seems to keep the mix going quite well. You'll always lose a few, whether it's because they get fed up with the training, or whether there's maybe a bit of parental pressure, I think, with some of them, if they're looking at going into their A-level years. But it's not something that we've really had too much of a problem
with. I guess how you are somewhat addressing it is that it's not massively impeding on their studies, and they're still enjoying it while being competitive. So, Colm or Eleanor, do you want to address that question?
No, I think commercial is quite similar. Not too much of a problem in that. Certainly the junior groups, particularly as Joe said there, the junior 16 to junior 18, really good and healthy numbers, very strong crews. So I think it's quite I think there's the coaching there for them. There's something there for them. There's a team there for them. So,
yeah, I guess I imagine that it's as well, like once one friend falls and then another and another. So it's I guess trying to not allow that cycle to start. But I don't know, Eleanor, do you have any advice, or can you answer to that?
It's to kind of keep the group together, training together is the big thing, because sometimes if it's the same people, the same boats, and then like if somebody drops out or just doesn't turn up, then the interest can kind of go. But I think if the squad or the crew like trains together, the group trains together, that helps to kind of keep the bond, the knitted. And I suppose they want to achieve as well, like they want to either win a pot or, go on for trials or whatever, because like kind of between like 16 and 18 that they'd be hoping to actually achieve like what they set up their goals at the beginning. So I suppose if tweak the training program if it's coming up to exam time. It's quality, not quantity, we say, coming up to pre's and the actual so yeah,
I think that's a good point, like in that keeping the crew, and it's probably difficult to manage, like this question comes from someone with 46 junior members, and I guess if you are hopping and changing and you don't get that bond in your crew that you're all working together towards that goal, whether it's the pot or a regatta or whatever it is. I think, yeah, if you're maybe hopping around different crews and stuff and don't have that bond, and then maybe the social side outside of the rowing club, would any of the coaches within Enniskillen or you guys help encourage that, or do you kind of just let it naturally happen, like any social events, let's say, outside of training?
I think for the most part, they make their own social lives.
Yeah.
But you are right that if you have a friend group and one of them leaves, it can have a bit of a knock-on effect on the others. Similarly, we've seen that happen, and some of the girls really sort of step up to the plate then, and they carry on with their training, and they're not so worried about their friend having left. So, and I think Colm was right there where he touched on making sure that they know that they are getting the coaching, they are getting the attention that they need to achieve whatever their goals are going to be.
Yeah, definitely. One question I have for Eleanor, a Skibbereen kind of perspective, but that you've managed to produce like a consistent feed of athletes into the Irish team, and similarly win like the largest number of pots won in the country, I think now. So how, I think that's a real challenge as well for clubs. It's like, how do you encourage kids to either go for the Irish team or go for a championship, when it means if they make the Coupe or the Worlds, they're not going to be racing in your championship crew. So how does Skibbereen manage that or balance that?
Well, I suppose, like, thinking about it, like in the past, and I suppose the thinking is like that the national team comes first. Like the training just is part of what you do, and like I suppose the program that's there it's designed to help you to, you know, to get to the trials and then to learn from each trial. Now, not everybody who goes to trial like gets asked to stay or asked to come back, but at the same time, like I've said probably before, like everybody's encouraged to be the best. Not everybody that rows in Skibbereen like gets to be part of the system, but you know, I suppose it's just encouraged like from the very beginning. You know, from once they step inside, like they're encouraged to be the best they can, do, you know, the best session they can. No, that doesn't happen every day. Everybody has a bad day from time to time. Like once they finish each session, like, you know, when I would have been involved in athletics, coaching, when the kids were running and that, like it was the same thing. Like you just encouraged, you know, the young lad to keep running just until he crossed the finish line. So it didn't matter where he came. And it's just like, if you go fast at each trial, then, you know, hopefully if it doesn't happen this year, it might be next year, just to be consistent.
But you do obviously put that emphasis on reaching the national team. Yeah. And obviously you're well positioned to do that in Cork for sure. But it's obviously paying off.
Yeah, well, I suppose it has to come from within, Claire. Like it's kind of where somebody either has an ambition, like not everybody has an ambition to be part of the national team, but if they want to trial and if they want to help along the way, well then that's what the athletes that they're surrounded with, their friends, their team members, like, you know, like that's where training together kind of helps encourage maybe the person that mightn't have that self-confidence, but like if they're part of like 3 or 4 lads that want to have a go, but then their companionship.
Yeah.
And like, but it's kind of where like you're traveling together, you're training together, you're competing together. You know, the time trials that we have on the river, the 2K erg sessions, are encouraged to do it as part of that's all.
Yeah.
You know, kind of to help them to have strong bases.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Is that a question?
No, it does, definitely. I think it's a unique insight to put the national team as the top to strive for. But it's interesting, and I wonder what other clubs would think of that. But we did have another question come in, and it's to paraphrase it almost, it's does your club proactively do anything to ensure that there's a turnover of those key positions on the committee? So like, do you actively try and bring in younger or maybe diversity into the committee members? Does anyone want to volunteer that answer? Colm, go on.
I think, I think commercial, again, is quite good for just having a natural turnover. There's always that, like, I got to join when I was kind of 17, 18, 19, the committee, and there's always that, yeah, there's definitely room for new people. I think probably if someone is kind of lasting too long, I know it was a couple of years back, say too much responsibility was being put on the captain at times, or too much work. So we actually got to the point where we said, okay, if you kind of want to join the committee, you will assign at the start of the year, this will be your responsibility. So it kind of gave that people an awareness, okay, this will be my task, this is my project. But definitely turnover, yeah, it's not too much in that, you know, there's no continuity, but there is definitely, there's always room for new people, including the AGM last night, new people were joining, so yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, very good. And Joe? Or no, you.
Well, I mean, I can answer the question in that, you know, we don't have that sort of committee structure, and we're not going to let Gay Conway and Claire Wilson go anywhere, so they're there for the duration.
Fair. Eleanor?
Yeah, I suppose for over the years, Skibbereen, like the athletes who come to the age are encouraged to be part of the committee, so they'll be nominated onto the committee. Okay, with college, they mightn't be there for all of the meetings, but like when they're on the committee, they're able to come to meetings then if they have a suggestion or an idea or just something to contribute. But then, you know, when they're on the committee, they come. And then, you know, I suppose for that person that asked the question, like it is possible to suggest that maybe in the constitution of the club that there should be, or that there could be, you know, a policy where a role will change, that the person will be rotated or changed after, let's say, 3 years or 5 years, so that you have like new blood, like really in a committee. Because I know sometimes, you know, parents naturally, you know, move off a committee when their children have finished with school and are still in the background, will still volunteer, but don't want the responsibility of like being a treasurer or being a secretary. So like the way around it would be to have, you know, kind of a policy of change, like after 3 years or 5 years, that there would be rotation. And I think it's good for every committee to have that, but also to leave the door open, like at an AGM, to nominate like young people or like parents that maybe don't want a particular job, but that are willing to be part of the committee and help out and contribute.
Yeah. So have those non-specific roles for, let's say, the junior or the youth kind of, or anybody really, to come in to the committee without taking a senior role, but then at that top level, that maybe have a look at those, ask yourself those questions of, is there either a natural turnover, or do we need to put it into the constitution that there should be a turnover after that?
It is important that that they can have a voice like on the committee or in, you know, the way the club is running. And, you know, it's good for every club to have like new blood and new ideas, because, you know, like the people who are in the positions for a long time, they're doing a fantastic job, very able, very willing. But, you know, as Colm said, like you don't want people to feel like overloaded or burdened with too much responsibility. And like it's good to share, to rotate as well, definitely.
Yeah, I think anybody that goes into something new as well is going to bring that just fresh bit of enthusiasm. They haven't gotten hardened down or realized, oh, that won't work, or this doesn't work. But they'll maybe have the naivety as well as the enthusiasm that can get something new done. So yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, I think I've pretty much gotten through like all the questions. Unless there was anything that you guys felt that I didn't touch on, or that you wanted to add, do let me know. All good. Feel like I've covered everything. But I just want to say a massive thank you to you guys for joining. I know it's not as easy as just hopping on the screen for an area, you kind of have to have a think about what is it that my club does well and what it doesn't do well, and there's a bit more involved than the hour that we're here. So massive thank you, and I hope it's been of value to those that have joined us. But yeah, so I'll wrap it up there and just say, oh, also actually I might add, would it be okay if anyone then wants to follow up with you guys individually? And like maybe there was something that you brought up and someone might want to know a bit more of how it works within your club. Would you be happy for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, no, brilliant. Okay, so thank you very much, and yeah, I'll leave it there and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.